Welcome to Living in Connection, where we explore the nature of physical and non-physical reality and what that means in your life.
Hi again, Frank. How are
Hello.
you today?
Hello, I'm fine. I hope you are too.
Yes, I'm doing great. So today I kind of just want to see where the flow takes us. Just kind of ask some questions that's on my mind and let it go from there. Um, so a big thing that I would like to ask you about is what do you feel what the guys say about the state of the world today and the chaos? And I know everyone feels it. Um, is there a purpose to all of this? Is it leading us somewhere?
Mhm. Yeah, that's an this will only take us about 7 or 8 days to
Of
topic.
course.
But no, it's a good topic because I think if the universe was designed in such a way that Earth is supposed to be a happy, tranquil place, somebody had a real design failure. But that's not really what it's about. I don't believe. If you look at the 3D world as a slowed down version of non 3D, slowed down and made into matter so that we are not only able to, but forced to experience it sequentially, one moment at a time.
Mhm.
Main thing that does is it allows us to see and to live through the consequences of our creation. My understanding is that we are all creators. We have been
Yeah.
created. We are creators. That which we create is also creative. It continues. But if you're in the non 3D without time constraints and you create something, you can create it instantly. You can destroy it instantly. You can forget about it instantly. We don't have luxury in 3D. In 3D, you
No.
have to live through it a little bit. And the result of
Hmm.
that is you can come up with something much less ephemeral than in the non 3D. And that's why you can build a new, let's say, well, I think this is the best way to say this. This was something they gave Rita and me many years ago. Um, you can create a soul through your life. You have all these threads that came together. You spend your life with them cohabiting. They get used to each other. They become what the guys call a habit pattern or a habit system. And at the end of your life,
And that's us. That's each
that's
person.
us. Yes, faith is a collection of all of these
All
threads
these
in
threads
various
in various
places.
places. Hmm. Right.
Well, um, at the end of your life, you have created a new individual. The threads are still in existence independently as they always were, but now
Yeah.
you are a unique combination of them, and you have been molding it through your whole life by your decisions.
So we're
And so
creating ourselves in this life,
we are creating the 3D version of ourselves. Yes.
a 3D version of ourselves.
Well, because when we die,
Yes.
that mind that we have created continues to exist. It's in the 3D. It's a
Yeah.
new element in creation. It is now a junction of many threads, which may have there may not be another soul anywhere that has that exact same combination.
Hmm.
Right now, this may not seem to be answering your question, but that's sort of the background to it because the whole world is about choice. It's about free will.
Choice. Yes.
They've said that from the beginning that that's what we're for. They made a great point of it. They said, we do not tell you what to do. Even if they did, we wouldn't listen. But, that we do not influence you because the whole purpose of your life is to see what you will choose. Well, if it's about your choosing and we make it impossible for you to choose, what sense would that make? All right.
Right. Right.
Well, now we need to actually talk about good and evil too, but and I'll do that in a minute if you want.
Of
But
course.
now you have millions. Well, no, you have what do we have? About 7 billion people on Earth at the same time. They're
Hmm.
each individual constructions. No two of them are the same. They
Yeah.
share threads independently or unpredictably, and you may share some with Dirk, and I may share the same ones or other ones with Dirk, and he may, and we're interconnected that way, so that in a sense, all is one is what they mean by that, I think. But in another way, we're all unique. We have a unique background, genetics, geography. We're in unique interests, prejudices, aspirations, all together. Now it's all okay. Now you can look at the world in one of two ways. You can say the external world has nothing to do with the internal world. So it's all chaos out there. Everything's bumping around and colliding. And of course, you're going to have all this chaos. But as I believe, and I think the guys have led me to believe this, the inner world and the outer world are the same thing. So the outer world is actually a representation of what's going on within us that we're not aware of. Because if you think about it, having all of those millions of threads within us, we've got to be way more complex than we ever realized that we are. And that has its good side and its bad side, because a lot of what we think are decisions have actually been decided for us by our own unconscious processes, what I call robots. They before you get into a level of consciousness, you have all of these elements of yourself deciding whether or not to bring it into your consciousness.
So I want to make a point just real quick on that, or maybe not make a point, but because you're saying it's about choice, the reason we're here, right? So then why do we have these robots? Is it about overcoming these habits?
Well, I think you'd have to look at it like we did not come in Act One. This has been going on a long time. All those true. Robots are the results of prior decisions of various threads. Plus, threads coming together, some of them hate each other, some of them love each other, some of them are indifferent, some of them are sometimes engaged and sometimes not engaged. Those are all very active processes. They're going on beneath the level of our consciousness, usually. Okay. And so, Carl Jung said, and I bore all my friends by saying this all the time, but he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. You will have those decisions made for you without your being aware of it. Okay. Now, once you have a problem, no matter how ingrained, if you can bring it to consciousness, now you have a chance to do something with it. Now you may make it worse, you may make it better, you may no way, but you can't do anything if it's unconscious and stays unconscious, because you don't even know that it's there.
Right.
Now project this out onto the world in general. We have all these wars, we have terrorism, we have hatreds, we have fanaticisms, but we also have love, communication, altruism, creativity. It depends on what it isn't like the reality depends on what you focus on, but the reality that you experience will depend on what you focus on.
Absolutely.
You can only ever see the cloud and never the silver lining. Well, that's true for you. If you're always in the silver lining, that's a different true for you.
Yeah.
There's an old story about a guy who comes into town and he meets somebody and he says, what are the people in this town like? And the guy says, well, what were they like, where you came from? He said, oh, they were grouchy, vindictive, mean, suspicious, terrible. And the guy said, well, you'll find them about the same here. Another guy came up, talked to the same old man and the man said, well, what were they like where you came from? And he said, oh, they were wonderful. They were sweet. They were generous. They were kind. He said, you'll find them about the same here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not only a matter of emotion or of what you like and don't like, but what we can experience of the world is whatever we have a resonance for. So supposing there is a community of people weaving Afghan rugs in a back street in Beirut somewhere, and you and I never hear about them, effectively, they don't exist for us. It doesn't mean they're not important. They're certainly important. They're the center of their own worlds. But in terms of art, we don't even know them. We don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Now, all of that is true. I'll give you another aspect of it as well. My idea of heaven might be your idea of hell.
Yeah.
My version of reality says go out there and win despite everybody else, and it might be it doesn't have to be cruel, but it could be very competitive, very tense, very, very angst driven. Somebody else's life can be, let's think in terms of cooperation and what we can build together. You understand.
I
And
do.
common sense tells us there's a million kinds of people in the world. Some people are natural scholars. They live in an attic like Spinoza, and they grind lenses for a living, but they study wisdom, and they're perfectly happy with that. Somebody else, like, Frederick the Great's got to be out there and organizing things. You can't say one way of living is right and one's wrong. It's just they're all different.
I agree. But it's hard though when you're in the human experience and we have technology and we can be made aware of so many issues in the world. So do the guys upstairs ever say anything about how to sort of, oh, I know they do. I know they do, but how to zoom out and look at the world in that way in maybe a simple step.
No, they would do the opposite. They would say zoom in.
Zoom in.
They would say, you have only one person that you are responsible for. Nobody else is responsible for you. You're not responsible for anybody else. And it is a mistake to ignore working on ourselves, working on our problems, trying to improve ourselves, whatever improve may mean. It's a mistake to put that aside and say, oh no, it's much more important. I've got to go join that cause. Now, your own life may be integrally connected with that cause. It's hard to imagine George Washington without the American Revolution, for instance. But on the other hand, from George Washington's point of view, the American Revolution might have been a really annoying interruption to his life as plantation owner. I mean, he didn't want power. He didn't want fame and glory, but he did his duty. And so the life that he wound up living probably has very little to do with the life that he expected he was going to live when he was a young man. He thought, well, I've inherited all this, what else do I need? I don't know. Does that clarify?
Yeah. So I feel like it's an inside job rather than looking at the world at because it feels like too when you work on yourself or focus, go inward, your outer reality starts to change a little bit anyway.
It's the same reality.
It's the same reality. So it's an inside job. That's why I say that. So if you want to see change in the world,
change yourself.
Probably go within.
Yeah. Well, now that doesn't mean, by the way, in case somebody would misinterpret this, that doesn't mean ignore your duties or ignore other people. Don't be kind. Don't be helpful. It means be conscious, be aware, be living your life, and realize A, it's not victims and villains. B, it's not somebody else's fault. C, the universe didn't shortchange you. D, the universe doesn't have any extra pieces and it doesn't have any shortage of pieces. Everything belongs, Everything
belongs.
Now,
go ahead.
Well, I was thinking when I was talking with Rita many years ago while she was still alive. Rita was actually a lifelong liberal and a lifelong activist in terms of politics and causes, and she wanted to see the world a better, happier place. But the guys pointed out to her, just because this is what you want doesn't mean it's what would be best for things. They said, you don't like predators, but if it weren't for predators, the world would be awash in bodies. I mean, in live bodies. You don't like scavengers, but if it weren't for scavengers, the world would be awash in dead bodies. You see? Not that the purpose of the world is scavengers and predators, but that they have their place. That everything the universe knows what it's doing. Now, one more thing, and then I'll pause for you. But if your focus on the world says to you that this world that we are experiencing is the important thing, and what happens is the important thing, rather than your soul, your self-creation, you're living with the larger self and the larger being, then of course it's going to look horrible. Ever since 1914, at the least, when World War I just tore up the old world. But even before then, it was still a miserable place for many, many people. On the other hand, there was a man named Viktor Frankl who was in the concentration camps in World War II, and he came out of it knowing one thing. He said, there's one thing nobody can ever take away from you, and that is your decision on how you are going to react to whatever happens to you. That is a man who knew about victimhood, and that victimhood is a state of mind. It's no matter how unfairly you're treated, you don't have to be a victim. And no matter how fairly you're treated, that doesn't mean you won't think of yourself as a victim. They're not connected. Not okay. All right.
No, I love that. So, do we choose our own life? Do we plan it out before we come here?
I've never been able to make up my mind, and I've never gotten from the guys a definitive answer either way. What I've gotten is evidence. Often I would ask a question somewhat like that, and they would say, well, yes, but no. because as they often say, reality is not contradictory, but it contains all contradictions. So you could make, there's serious evidence that says you came into this world, in this place, in this time, to be a part of an ongoing improv, and
heard that.
And it makes sense.
It does.
But and I think it's probably more true than the opposite, but the opposite also is true. You came into this world for reasons that you really can't know, and it doesn't matter because it's improv. There is no fixed agenda. It may be that your life goes in an entirely different way than was set up in people's thoughts, and it doesn't matter because wherever you go is all right. That's the nature of improv. I think it's the difference between improv and fixed lines and fixed plot.
Okay. Yeah, so we can kind of, like you said, it goes back to being a creator, I guess.
I think so. Let's put it this way. If it isn't that, what would you think it could be?
I've always felt like it was a combination. Because I've always felt like there were certain people, when I meet them, it's like, oh, I've known you before. And we're supposed to meet. And this is like part of the plan. Yet I feel like there's all this space in between that's completely free will. But I don't know, obviously, but that's the feeling I get when I'm living
That sounds like improv to me.
Yeah, improv, totally. Yes.
Yeah.
But then there's those key moments, though, where I do question sometimes, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I do know.
Supposed to happen?
If you were a drama coach and you had a whole bunch of people and you were teaching them improv as a way of getting into character and staying in character, you might every so often say, okay, now the bus crashes and hits this car. Go on.
That's true. You'd have that little
I mean,
piece.
This is a guess, Faith. The guys have never said so in so many words. But what they have said repeatedly, life is about choice. And it's never false choice. It's never go through the motions, even though it's already been determined. It's always choices. Because they said the purpose of your life is for you to create by choosing. Why in the world would we stop you from or punish you for a wrong choice? How can there be a wrong choice? If it's improv, it's not a wrong choice.
It resonates. What you're saying resonates with me for sure. Like, I think that's probably very, very true.
I do have a fear that people hearing that might say, well, that's the coldest thing I've ever heard. That means if people are dying from whatever, you don't care. But that isn't really it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question that maybe Rita might have explained to you. Did she talk about whether the death scene, and hopefully this is okay to go here, but
that's fine.
Whether that is actually more peaceful for the soul than our 3D selves are looking at it? Because I have heard that you actually, and I don't know if this is true, but you pop out of your body before you actually go, and you're not even the one experiencing whatever it is that's going on. Hopefully I put that in a way you can understand.
I'm once in a while I think it always throws people off, but I don't know that we ever addressed it in quite that way. My guess would be, though, that you'll get out of that experience what you need or want. I'm not sure which. In other words, supposing you and I are in an airplane and the airplane crashes.
Hmm.
You are done with your lessons or your creation or whatever, and the body experiences the crushing and the burning or whatever happens, and you do not because you don't need it. But maybe for me, it's kind of interesting and even kind of important to experience the
Wow.
last second.
Wow.
I think in either case, it would probably be a choice, but I don't know any of that. I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
I do know this. Years ago, it's been a few years now, I made a conscious decision that I would live my life trusting that life knows what it's doing. And it
Hmm.
wouldn't have to make sense to me ahead of time. It'd be all right.
Hmm.
At the same time, having had a lifetime worth of asthma, I always worried, would I be on my deathbed and not only dying, but gasping for breath? It just seemed like a horrible way to go, you know.
Yeah.
And then one day it occurred to me, duh, you trust your life, trust it all the way to the end.
Hmm.
You know, if we are
Hmm.
protected, if life knows what it's doing, it's going to know what
Hmm.
it's doing even at that last sense. And for all we know, that might be the bell ringer. That might be the one that suddenly puts the whole life into focus for us, you know.
Hmm.
Or it may just. Alan Greenspan once said, "Sometimes you need a kick in the pants to get you started. Sometimes it just hurts." It's the way to know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about guidance a little bit. And
Okay.
I know you call them the guides upstairs, and other
Mhm.
people would say angels, probably, or
Sure.
spirit guides,
Sure.
or even ancestors.
I sometimes call it my non-3D component. You know,
Okay.
knowing
Yeah.
we extend. Sure.
Yeah. So different names and labels for really what we're calling guidance. What is the role of guidance? So we're here playing, choosing.
Right.
And I find that when you ask for help, or at least in my experience, I
It's
often
there.
get help. It's there. But
Yeah.
if I don't ask, I really do feel like I'm kind of figuring it out on my own.
Right. And so
Usually.
when you do ask, you are reminded that there is guidance and you connect further. When you don't ask, you're reminded, oh, this can be real, shall we call it a learning experience? I mean, it can be, I'm in chaos here because I think I'm on my own. I'm playing over my head. I don't know what the rules are. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's also
No.
experience.
Yeah,
I,
absolutely.
when I think about it, I look at it like this. We on Earth, by the nature of the way it's set up for us to experience one moment at a time at a time, we live it sequentially. We have no choice.
Hmm.
But just like our brain is one half sequential and one half gestalt, there's our non-3D component, which never loses sight of the overall picture. And so if we're in the dark stumbling around in a room and we're in connection with a larger part of ourselves, and it says, go off to the left 2 steps and then go over there. And then, it is
Hmm.
that's a form of guidance. That doesn't mean that's what they're all about, but it means they can be helpful because they see a larger picture than we can see.
Hmm.
Now, it also doesn't mean that they're in a better position than we are. It's just different. We are the spotlight. We're vivid, intense, bright, totally at our best, focused on the moment. They're
Hmm.
sort of more like star glow. They're all over the place in the background. They're there. You can't read a newspaper by it, and you can't really focus in on things. The way they focus in on things is through us. The way we get a larger
Oh.
context is through them, if it
Mm.
works well. I mean, at best.
Okay. Yeah, something I was curious about, and this is just from practicing mediumship, is I wonder how spirits see us since they don't have the human eyes, right? They're not human anymore. But do they see us as light? I'm so curious. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I've always been so curious.
I can tell you the first answer, and I sometimes choke up when I hear it or when I hear myself saying it, because I certainly did when I've heard it first. You have no idea how much they love us.
Hmm.
It's like supposing you were the proud parent and you were watching your 2-year-old toddling around. You
Hmm.
wouldn't be judging their performance. You'd be aware of the fact that you are a participant in a miracle, you know,
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, that takes all that grading of papers aspect away. You know, they're not really policemen. They're not really teachers marking your every mistake. They are, at least as I experience them, they are friends, lovers, parents, children in the sense of being wide open, war companions, peace crusaders, you name it, and then they are it. Always, in my experience, now this is not everybody's experience. I know people who think that their guidance is malign. I can't really imagine that. I don't have any experience of it, whatever. I really ultimately trust mine, and I've had no experience. I've had no reason to not trust them. You know,
Same.
I would think it'd be a very difficult thing to go through life knowing that you had guidance, but not trusting it. You know, I mean,
I don't know if I'd call that guidance, but yeah.
But they do. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
I think what's happening there is, go back to Viktor Frankl. They experience something, then the meaning they put on that something is the non-3D let me down. You know, whereas someone else in the same situation, looking at it differently, would say, well, they did the best they could, or it was a tough situation, I had to learn. A lot of it, we're shooting in the dark, and you decide, is my default position going to be that I can trust guidance, that they are my friends, they are a part of me, being a part of me, or I being a part of them, same thing. We have identical interests, or we are closely aligned. Or are we going to say, I am potentially a victim here being milked, and I've got to watch my back every moment for fear that they'll get me. Now that sounds ridiculous, but you know, there's a certain theology over the years that was that way, that regarded anything that wasn't the result of ratiocination as potentially the devil or evil spirits trying to corrupt you, trying to lead you astray, you know.
Yeah.
You can't say that there are no such things. But I can say I don't experience it that way.
Yeah, that is such an interesting thing to think about. I haven't experienced that, except for, I will say, when I was younger, like when I was a child, I sensed spirits, and I sensed that they weren't always loving. But now as an adult, I start to wonder, was that just my own fear morphing it?
No, I don't think it was your fear. I think it was your perception. But but perceiving something as evil is not the same thing as it being evil. Now,
Right.
I'll give you a little, and I don't mean that we're just making bad judgments about it. Let me try and explain this. I had a friend who was an ex-Catholic priest, and I had been thinking about this. And one day he came to visit, and I said, Jim, is it possible that when the Bible talked about God saying, don't eat of this fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, that it really meant the tree with the fruit of perception of things as good and evil?
Mm-hmm.
And he knew Hebrew, and he stopped and he thought, and he said, well, he said, Hebrew has very few abstract nouns. He said, that's a very permissible translation. Well, if that's what the Bible really meant, God created the world and he found it good, if you remember. Adam and Eve were there, you know, I realize it's myth, but it's a myth with a purpose. So you have to take it, I have to take it seriously. Yeah. Adam and Eve are living in this world in a state of nakedness, which I take to mean no veils, no barriers, you know, but just like a little child, you know.
Yeah.
Then they take the step of beginning to decide, this is good, this is bad. Yeah. And for whatever reason that we descended into that, it is a descent. It probably has good characteristics as well, but it makes for a very, very uncomfortable world, especially if you take that to be self-evident that there is good and there is evil. And many people assume the line of between good and evil goes between people. And instead it goes within people. You know, we're all capable of evil. We're all capable of good. Now,
yeah.
Hang on a second. I'm trying to not to lose the thought. Oh, yes. Let's take hunting and fishing as an example, I can't remember anymore if the guys gave this to me or if I came up with it on my own. I think they did. Depending on your attitude toward hunting and fishing, one person might say hunting and fishing, that's self-reliance, that's using the nature that's there. We have to eat. There's no other way to do it, you know.
Hmm.
And this is good, this is skill, this is providing for your family, blah, blah, blah. So it's a good. Another
Hmm.
person might say it's taking lives. It's taking lives of innocent animals, and you don't have to do that. It's a bad.
Hmm.
Neither of those is an absolute truth. It's two different ways of looking at something. So if
Yeah.
you, as a young person, were aware of spirits with different values, you easily might have seen this is good because it is like you, this is bad because you don't like it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, you look at the contemporary world and you see the kinds of evils that have been done and are being
Hmm.
done on such massive scales. You
Hmm.
can't say that torturing a child or torturing an animal or torturing anybody is not evil. I mean, I can't say it anyway. Maybe somebody can find a way to turn that into something that's not evil. I don't know how they would do it. But
Hmm.
but beyond that, what you think, what I think depends so much on our values. And the values depend so much on things that are beneath our conscious level of awareness, so that we don't really know that we're making a conscious decision. What we're doing is saying, well, that's self-evident. You know, again, if you can't make the unconscious conscious, you can't do anything about it. You can't decide, yes, that's right. I agree with that. I have a friend who sometimes gets wondering what he should do. And I say, I don't care what you do, but I care that you make the decision, not
Mm.
robots that are making it automatically.
Mm.
And that may
Yeah.
not seem to have a lot to do with good and evil, but I think ultimately it does.
And I feel like if people, well, I don't know. It feels like if more people were making decisions from a conscious place, if the whole world were a little bit more conscious, which I hope we're getting there, that it would naturally look, I don't want to say good or evil, but it would look more good because,
Well, what if when people are acting totally consciously, their values are opposed to ours?
right.
There are whole societies that believe I have to be true to my ancestors. I have to get those people because they took away my ancestors' land, or they made my ancestors slaves, or they did this, that, or the
Mm.
other.
Hmm.
And they are, and they're, you can't really fault their
Yeah.
position in terms of loyalty, but you can certainly fault it in terms of the consequences of continuing the blood feud, you know. I don't
Yeah,
think
you're
it's
right.
yeah, it's not automatically going to be a happier, prettier place.
Yeah, I see.
What'll
Yeah.
make it a better place will be as people work out their issues.
Hmm.
Maybe even that, as I'm saying it, I'm not so sure, you know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's back to that, fishing hunting thing. It's
You
depends on how
know,
you're looking at
Rita asked some of these same questions when she was alive, and um, she was concerned about these things. As I said, she had been a lifelong political activist. She
it. Hmm.
wanted to see the world a happier, better, safer, saner place.
Hmm.
And she was brought up really surprised one night. I think it was an early on session too. And the guys just said, all is well. All is always well.
Hmm.
And she, you know, and they said, including World War II and concentration camps and atomic bombings and destruction of cities, all of that. I mean, they didn't put it in those, you know,
Yeah,
but that what they mean by that is not everything is the way you would like it to be. They mean
right.
the system is functioning the way it's supposed to function, in that everybody is working out their salvation, as the Buddhists would say, in
Mm.
3D time, against each other, with each other, together, apart, against, whatever. So
Wow.
the process is messy. It doesn't mean it's a bad process.
Yeah. Wow. And how did how did Rita respond to that?
Rita was
I wonder if it gave her a sense of peace
It did
towards the
actually.
world.
It did. It was a very new idea to her, and she had to think about it. But she was already Rita. I was pausing to think about it because, on the one hand, was her lifelong political activism, and on a second hand, was her scholarly discipline, ways of thinking. On the
Mhm.
third hand, if there is a third hand, was her experience with the guys upstairs and with others like that.
Non-physical hand.
Well, Harry Truman used to say he was looking for a one-armed economist, so he couldn't say on the one hand, on the other hand. But Rita was able to absorb it and change. You know, she did find it satisfying. At
Yeah.
first, it was a real, it was not exactly a puzzle to her, but it was a totally new thought. Never had she ever probably heard anybody say all is well, all is always well. But the
Mhm.
more that we went into it and the more there were examples, she could see and when you come to the root of this thing, Faith, if you believe that the 3D world in itself is the story, then you're always going to be disappointed and you're always going to be saying, this is a mess. If you
Yeah.
think the 3D world is a workshop or an encounter group or an improv or any way you want to look at it, designed for a larger, both more personal and more universal answer, then
Mhm.
the cast is just a part of the process.
Yeah, it's just a small part of existence, it seems. I mean,
Well,
important,
I'm sorry, go
but
on.
just I don't want to take away its importance, I guess, by saying that. So it's still important, but just a little piece of the bigger reality. Is that
Yes, yes. It's not only important, it's probably irreplaceable. There is no
mm-hmm.
other way to do what they're doing, what we are doing, which is
Mm-hmm.
take disparate elements, have them live together for a while, and then come out and you've got a new a new thought pattern in the universe. You've added to the universe. That's not trivial, but it
Right.
can only be done apparently. Well, I don't know if they've ever flatly said it can only be done in 3D, but that's certainly the reason for 3D. It seems like
Yeah. Hmm.
if you were to make certain things impossible because you didn't approve of them, murder, robbery, anything, accidental drownings or whatever. Anything that you took out would be less of the full experience. And I don't know what the result was. I don't know if that would be. Do we need murder in the total equation? I can't say that we do, but I can't say that we don't either.
Hmm.
It's like if you were to say you have free will, except we never have this result. Well, your free will has just gotten remarkably constricted. You
Right. I mean, if we live in an infinite universe with infinite possibilities, then of course it exists.
Well, and one of the consequences of that, if you really want free will, you have to have the ability to choose. If
To
you have the
choose.
ability to choose, you have the ability to choose wrong, whatever wrong means in context.
Yeah, well said. Exactly. It's back to that choice and free will. Hmm.
And then bring it back to the individual. The guys have said you are the center of your own world, and they said literally, you are the center of your own world, and that is how it should be. Except, don't forget, so is everybody else the center of their own world, and that's as it should be.
Hmm.
There is a joke children's book that was supposed to be entitled "You're Special Just Like Everybody Else," but in a way,
Yeah,
that's true.
that's
We're all
exactly it.
unique, but they're all unique too, and they're not just stage scenery. They're part of the improv. You don't know where it's going to lead.
Awesome. Well,
I
we're
will I will say
mhm.
the net result of everything they've told me has been to take a situation that sometimes tempted me to despair, and I thought, well, in the first place, anything you learn, anything you do, 10 seconds after you're dead, it's all gone. What was the use? And so
Yeah.
immortality changes that equation quite a bit. But beyond that, you look at the world and you say, what is wrong with these people? And sometimes you look at your own life and say, what was wrong with that person? You know, and yet ultimately it does matter and it doesn't matter. It matters in terms of what you do with it. It doesn't matter in terms of nobody's marking your scorecard.
Yeah. So no heaven, no hell.
If by that you mean something external to the individual, yes, I agree. But I think people create their own heavens and their own hells. And I'm not being metaphorical, actually. I think, oh,
Yeah.
and I have experienced it in retrievals by way of the Monroe Institute. You find a
Mm.
person who has died and for whatever reason has not realized they're part of something greater. Perhaps they had a really firmly ingrained belief that life is life and that's it. Once you're dead, you're gone, nothing. Or they have a firmly ingrained belief once you die, you're going to be judged. And many people, a friend of mine, his father died. He asked me to go retrieve him, see if he needed a retrieve.
Wow.
And I
Hmm.
found him. And sure enough, he was, I don't know how else to describe it, he was kind of hiding from judgment
Mm.
because he was
Oh, wow.
sure that if he were judged, he would be condemned. And I sort of
Wow.
persuaded him, that's not the way it is. And he went on to then create in the afterlife his own continuation of life. He had been a chef in real life, and so he went and founded his own restaurant. And that
Oh
won't last
my.
forever, but it was a halfway point. So he would have created his own hell. And in this case, he created a hell that he refused to go to. He would have experienced a judgment day, and he was sort of slinking away from it. The only reason he had to is because he expected to.
That is so fascinating. And we're coming up on the hour, but I feel like
Ready?
that would be a whole conversation in general
Right.
is those retrievals. That's something that's so fascinating.
Yes,
Um,
that probably would be the topic. I was sort of taking it
yeah,
for granted now. It's like
yeah.
most of this stuff, it's so simple. You could do it in 5 minutes. And in fact, I did. I was being driven to work one day in a carpool, and I just leaned my head against the side of the door. In 5 minutes, it took me to find him, talk to him, and send him on his way, and then back to normal life.
What?
Well,
That's
it's not hard. Most of these things, the biggest problem is not the thing itself, it's the getting past the barrier that says, well, of course, this is going to be hard, or it's going to be not possible, or it's for special people, but not me. But if you can once you get beyond them, then you're beyond them. And from then on, you just go in and do it and come out again.
and again, that's our sort of our choice. We choose to go beyond our beliefs, our programs,
That's a good
and
way to
then
say that. Yes, but no. It is our
oh,
choice, but it's only our choice to the degree that we are aware of things that have been beneath the surface. Because otherwise, they're going to be telling us with great certainty, this can't be done. And if it could be done, you couldn't do it. And if you did do it, you'd mess it up. You have to
that's
get,
the critic saying that. Is that what you're,
well,
the inner critic?
it's one form of robot that many people have because of
Mhm.
what they absorbed either from their parents or their education or society.
Right,
But
right.
but that is not a trivial thing to do, to find the things that are beneath the level of consciousness and bring them in so that you can deal with them. Once
Mm.
it's like there's a slight diversion, but it won't be a long one. Sometimes you can be facing a real problem and you don't know how you're going to deal with it, and every aspect of it seems it just goes around and around in your head, and I can't get a handle on this. And if you just mark them down, the aspects of the situation, you mark them down on a legal pad or something, all of a sudden, instead of being this vast inflated mess, it's this and oh yeah, I can deal with that. It's the same.
Hmm.
It's the same kind of thing, bringing it into proportion.
Hmm.
You're asking very good questions, and they're leading to nice places.
I feel like I could keep going. Like, I know we're getting close to the end here, but I could keep going for sure a lot longer, and especially on the retrievals. That is actually something I'm so interested in. Maybe,
Right.
maybe
If you
real
want to
quick
do a
we could,
session just on that, sure, we can do that.
yeah, and maybe real quick we could just kind of explain what that is for people who are listening because
All right.
we kind of jumped into that without explanation.
Yeah, you're right. In the Monroe Institute, we learned that you can go to what they call well, no, I'll leave all the focus stuff out of it. There, you can go to a certain place and you can, it's basically as simple as intending to help. And sometimes you have somebody specific that somebody has asked you about or that you thought about, and you can go to them. Or sometimes it's, if anybody needs help, I'm here. I'll give you an example of how the process works. This was in a program. This was in a Lifeline program, which is what teaches you how to do retrievals.
Mm-hmm.
I was suddenly in a, what happens is these things all work out as scenes, and you're an actor in the scene. You're not yourself, but you're playing something. Okay. And also you lie like a Persian rug sometimes to get people to where they need to go. But in this situation, I was there and there had been a crime. And
So hold on, can we pause for a second just to make sure, because I want to make sure everyone's understanding this. So what you just said, this is, what is this? This is sort of like
an altered
imagine
state.
an
It's an
altered state.
When you're in an altered state, you can get the equivalent of a vision. Thank you. And you see,
So it's a
I wouldn't
vision.
even, sort of. It's more of
Okay.
an experience. The trouble with the word vision is it sounds like it's visual and it has a
Ah,
visual component, but really it's more of an experience.
right. It could be feeling, it could be some other sort of,
It'd probably be many things. I
okay.
walked, right? But I expressed my
Right.
willingness. I was in an altered state, and boom, there was a scene. The scene
Okay,
was a
perfect.
crime scene. A woman had
Okay.
raped and killed. She was on the grass in a park or something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? Because for one thing, if she's a rape victim, the last thing she's going to want to see is a male authority figure or a male at all, probably. I mean, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
right? I have no idea how I'm going to handle this. All of a sudden, the scene looks like it's being lit with blue and red, blue and red, blue and red. And just as I'm wondering what that's all about, the tape, because I'm in the middle of this tape, it cuts in and Bob Monroe's voice says, now report what's been happening so you'll
Oh
know
my God,
later.
yeah.
So it stopped with the blue and red, and I didn't know what was going on. And I said, blah, 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 gotta go. And I went back to the scene, and suddenly I realized those are police strobes. So I made myself
Mm-hmm.
a policeman. And then I had EMTs or some guys coming in, and I knew she thought I'm dead and that's it. And so I thought, okay, we got to get that out of the way first. So rather than have them put the sheet over her head, put the sheet over her body, except for her head, as you would do if someone were still living. And I said, well,
Oh,
they
wow.
just about killed her, but and then went on, and then from then on, it was taken care of. But it's like, here's what I think happens. And you're in that is to say, when one of these people is in a situation like this, they've lost their body, they've lost their senses, they don't know where they are or what. And for whatever reason, their belief system or something keeps them separated from their higher self, which ordinarily would just sort of welcome you back. Because of that, they are blind or let's say non-receptive to anything except sensory clues. Well, so our helpers use us because we sort of reek of the earth still. You see, they can
Gosh,
experience
wow.
us because we're human still. We're
Uh-huh.
alive. And then when we finish playing our games, others in the non-physical can come and take them. So often people
And by
will
playing the game, you're talking about the scene?
see,
Doing the police officer
basically
presumably.
we're doing an improv ourselves, trying to get their attention. Once you get their attention, it's easy to take that attention from the person in the body to someone else out of the body. And often they're met with their grandparents or their parents or someone they love, even a pet sometimes. But
And just to be clear for anyone listening, this is a real person who has passed, and you go into this scene where you're meeting their soul. And then just to clarify.
yeah, well, the soul stopped me because I regard us as souls in bodies. If that's what you mean, yes. This is the, or
Well,
it might be clearer to say their mind, okay? Because they're still their mind. It's now a mind though that is on its own because it has no sensory capability anymore. And if its belief system is stopping it from perceiving anything except what it's used to, that means it has just made it impossible to perceive anything. But people aren't necessarily thinking. They're not even necessarily able to think. It's more like they are tape looping. That's an old expression,
Wow.
but you know what I mean? It's just going round and round, and they're in the same situation. Bob Monroe started this by finding a kid who had been a galley slave. He had been a cook in a galley in a ship in Scotland that went between Oban and one of the islands. Ship had blown up in the middle of the night. The guy had been killed, but he didn't realize he was killed. And he's still there thinking it's the middle of the night and it's dark and he's waiting for the sunlight and he's still, swimming, or not swimming, but trying to stay afloat. That had been like 150 years earlier. But he didn't experience the passage of time. He was taped.
Fascinating.
And when Bob came in and interacted with him, and he said, well, go to the light. And I think the kid saw his mother. And this is on tape. And you can hear, because Bob did this one through a medium. And you can hear the mother. And it raises goose flesh on you to hear it. And then,
I've been getting chills this whole time as you're talking about these.
Yeah. Well, this is something you'd be very comfortable with, come to think of it. You'd probably like this a lot.
Super interesting.
And thank you for clarifying that, because it is so easy to take stuff for granted, to forget what it is that needs to be said for people to make sense of it.
Yeah, especially someone who hasn't gone to the Monroe Institute or had any sort of experiences. It's good to clarify. But do you think we should wrap it up here?
I think probably so, just for the time.
Okay, perfect.
If you want to do a whole thing on retrievals next time, that's fine. Whatever you want.
Okay.
Dirk, did she do a good job or what? Huh?
Did a great job. Yes, another wonderful discussion. And the whole aspect of retrievals is a truly amazing thing. And I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun talking through that.
Maybe when we do, maybe you should stay and participate in that, a three-way discussion.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think that might be good. All right. Well, Dirk,
Frank and I and many others, we've had joint experiences where we each of us had different parts of the experience, which act as a validation of what happened, that are just, they leave you shaking your head for a long time.
I'll never forget Katrina and that light. Make a note, Faith. We'll talk about that the next time after Hurricane Katrina. I had this, and we'll say. Dirk, how long have we been going? Did you make a note?
We're right at an hour or thereabouts. So
certainly
good job. Well timed. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll join you next time.
And Faith, thank you for those excellent questions.
If you enjoyed this episode, please press like. Please press subscribe to stay informed of new episodes as they appear. We would love to hear from you in the comments section below, and we wish you the very best in connecting with your own guidance.